Another part of this new garden planting that we're doing, or revamping that we're doing, I should say, is we're going to take away these in-ground beds there. Above ground beds here. And we are actually going to move our above ground to down here where our in-ground used to be, just for the fact that it's flatter and it's going to be definitely easier to set up. It's hard to see in this video, but the above ground beds here are kind of tiered in because of the unlevelness of the ground. So by moving them to the flatter ground, it's going to be just a lot easier for us to lay cloth down and get the bed set up. Good morning, everybody. We are on part 2 of revamping our gardens.
Yep.
So in part 1, you saw we were trying to decide what beds to get and figure out where we were going to put them and everything. So we got that taken care of.
Yeah, we had originally planned to pull out the raised beds that we have now, those 4x4, and step those beds in for the slope of the land. She came up with a great idea that we rarely use, or...
Well, we decided we're not doing such a big in-ground.
Right, we're going to tweak it.
When we moved down here, we kind of tried to go big fast. And it just kind of was just a little bit much.
Yeah,
so,
little overwhelming for us.
Yeah, part of our decision on revamping the garden was, like he said, we're going to take away one of our plots. Well, probably about
1.5, maybe 2.
That we were using for the in-ground because we're not going to use that again.
Right. So. We're still going to grow the pumpkins and the gourds and the melons for the pigs and the animals, but we're reducing the amount that we normally do here and moving more towards the in-ground.
Yes.
Or above ground. Raised beds.
Yeah, the raised beds that you saw in part 1, and if you watched our video on tips to put them together, because that was 844 screws that we hand put in, and it was a lot.
That's a lot.
So getting back down here, we decided to do the beds into the in-ground. So what we had to do first was we had to take up all the ground cover that we had laid for
last year's
in-ground garden, because we never took it up. We never took up the drip tape.
No.
So getting prepared was...
That was a day.
It was a day of trying to get just everything up and out.
And then cleaning up all the dead grass and dead crops, you know, raking them up. We wound up creating 3 piles, just burned it down. And looking much better down here now.
Yes, for sure. We are still working on getting our, what's it called, hardware cloth that we're going to put under the beds, because
supposed to be here today.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. So right now we're just going to get our lines marked, how we want to lay out our ground cover and how we're going to lay out the beds over here. And so that's the ticket for this morning. And then hopefully if the ground cover gets here by afternoon, we may actually be able to start laying some of this more out.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
At least get the ground, or not the ground cover, but the hardware cloth down and
the ground
stapled
cover.
in.
Yes.
In measurement where the beds are supposed to be, and then lay out the ground cloth and move the beds in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So just join us on this day of getting the ground
Beautiful
and
day
area.
in North Carolina. I'm telling you, folks, it's supposed to be 74 degrees.
This sweatshirt's fixing to come off.
Yeah, it's already quite warm, and it's like only 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. All right. Let's get busy.
Yeah.
So before we got started, Mike did what Mike does best, and he jumped on the computer and got all our measurements for our new garden space. So right now Mike's out here with the tape measure and with some rebar that we're just marking our 4 corners of the ground cover that we're going to put down. Now that we got our 4 corners marked where the ground cover is going to go, Mike came in with his tractor and his box blade. Because that was an in-ground garden for the last 2 years, there's a lot of divots and such, so he's trying to get it smoothed out a little bit. Anytime Mike can play on his tractor, he's a happy camper. He's gonna go ahead and start doing the measurements of where the beds are gonna actually be so we can get those marked. And he's just gonna use some rebar that we've already had on hand to do the measurements. So one tip, if you're going to be filling pretty big size beds like these are, you can use any type of limbs or rotten wood or anything like that in the bottom, and then put your compost and soil on the top. And that way it helps, number one, when as they break down, they're going to give it nutrients, and number two, it helps where you're not filling the beds. You don't have to get so much dirt at the beginning to get the beds filled. So right now Mike's getting some of these logs that we had that were either washed up in our creek or, you know, just dead trees that had fallen. We're gonna get them brought over here and we're gonna get them cut down. We are still waiting on the hardware cloth to get here. It's supposed to be delivered like any time now. So that's gonna be our first step that we need to lay down, is the hardware cloth, and then we will put the ground cover over that. So while we're waiting, we're gonna go ahead and get these logs cut down. Just as we were getting started on the wood, our hardware cloth arrived and we were able to get that started. And then that was it for the day. We called it. So we'll see you next time.